Want to bet? Bet on what?
I'll take that bet right on.
Welcome back in, YouTube. I'm Mathias. I'm your host of Wanna Bet. This is episode number 7, Week 2 NFL football. We've had a few videos if you've watched them in the past. We did some college football, pretty much the same style. This will be our first video solely focusing on the NFL. So we're going to bring you guys the best plays that I consider available for week number 2. At the end of the video, if you're into props, I also have what I think are the top 10 props for this week. I don't dive deeply into them. I think that would take substantially too long. So if you have interest in that, comment down below and let us know if you want more information on them. We can make a whole separate video of all those things. But for the most part, we'll just ramble through those. But I have 5 plays I really like for week 2. And then I'm also going to give you guys a few absolute stay away games for me. And then you can just decide on your own what's worth risking a wager and what's not. So first and foremost, New York Giants visiting the division rival Washington Commanders. Currently, the Commanders are laying 1.5. Over-under is 42.5. If you'd prefer the under, you can find 43.5. We have a couple 0-1 teams. You could say that the Commanders didn't look too bad last weekend. Jane Daniels, rookie quarterback, first game. He rushed for 2 touchdowns. Never really got anything going as far as the passing game goes. Flip side to that coin, the New York Giants looked probably as bad as you could. Had it not been for the Panthers looking like a peewee football team in week 1, they would have taken the cake for the worst team last week. Daniel Jones, every single game that goes by, that contract looks worse and worse. Malik Neighbors didn't get involved at all last week. So this is kind of a tough game on paper because Commanders laying 1.5 seems like a pretty easy bet. But one thing we're going to do quite a bit on this channel in this video series is look at system plays. So what's some historical data where we can take this matchup and say, hey, has this happened in the past? And if so, what was the outcome the predominant amount of the time? So the system play we have for the Giants-Commanders Week 2 game is betting against the home favorites. So a poor team from last season, and they qualify a poor team as being outscored by opponents by 4 or more points per game versus division opponents in week number 2. The spread for the spread for the underdog is 46-16 since 1983. That's good for 74% of the time. So anytime that a division rival is going on the road and they are an underdog, playing a team that was really bad last season with that 4 or more points per game differential, they are good for covering that spread 74% of the time. These are the tickets, and these are the little nuggets we're going to grab. Like I said, I use that StatSharp website. A lot of good info on there. There's also a lot of bad info because you always have to take into consideration the matchup still. When I take the matchups into consideration, Commanders' defense looked pretty bad. I think if Daniel Jones was able to show any signs of competence, it should be this weekend. Not going to be a home field advantage. I don't think anyone hates the New York Giants. I mean, how could you? As far as where the money is going, sharp and public-wise, the Commanders are getting 83% of the bets, which is 71% of the money. So public is hammer, hammer, hammer on the Commanders, thinking this is an instant spread cover. So the bigger money is going towards the Giants. Commanders are also receiving 81% of the money line bet. My play for this game, I'm going to go ahead and rock that system play. This being 1.5, I would love to wait until Sunday. I'm not going to play this today because the more casual sports bettors, they're going to open up DraftKings and FanDuel Sunday morning, an hour before kickoff. They're going to lock in their plays. I assume every person looking at that 9 out of 10 times is going to see, oh, I can get the Commanders to cover only 1.5 against a very bad Giants team. Hammer it. So I think you could get off that hook and maybe get the 2. Could even go higher. If you could get plus 2.5, I would instantly bet it. So if you see plus 2.5 for the Giants, insta bet for me. And in the meantime, I'll watch it. If it's still sitting at the 1.5, come Sunday, I'll still play it. Maybe even just buy up to the 2. So that's our first play, New York Giants covering the 2-point plus they're getting. Up next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Detroit Lions. Currently, Lions laying 7.5, over-under set to 51.5. So 2 1-0 teams. Baker Mayfield led the Bucs to the team we just spoke about, the Commanders, last weekend, in a pretty convincing win. Threw for high 200 yards, had a couple touchdowns, looked good. Lions have a lot of Super Bowl buzz this season, so I think you could consider them a top 8 to 10 in every aspect of the game. So a good special teams, really good offense, really good defense. That's why they're getting all the love they are. Last weekend, Sunday Night Football, Lions could have lost that game outright. Rams came into Detroit, played very, very well, went to overtime, didn't even cover. Lions drove down the field and scored a walk-off touchdown. So I don't hate the Lions in this game. The 7.5, do I think they'd cover it? They could, but we're not going off assumptions. We're going to use a system play for this one as well. And this is a really juicy one. So Dan Campbell coached teams. The first half line at home has been absolutely dominant for the Detroit Lions. Detroit is 20-4 in the first half against the spread, coming off a game at home the previous week. So right now, the best I can find is Lions minus 4.5. I think the Lions go into halftime up a touchdown, maybe even up 10, and then maybe the Bucs get a little bit of a, backdoor cover towards the end of the game. Baker just starts airing it out. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin just throwing the ball out. I think that the crowd's going to be buzzing. Detroit fans are so excited to finally have a decent football team. So if you're playing with me, we're going to lay the 4.5 for the first half spread. Lions are getting 32% of the bets, but 40% of the money against the spread. So that means sharps absolutely love the Lions for this one. So if you want to take the 7.5, you would be betting with the sharps. So I don't hate the play. My only one for this game is that first half covering 4.5. Up next, we have the New Orleans Saints visiting the Dallas Cowboys. Currently, Cowboys favored by 6. Over-under is 46.5. So two other teams that are starting out 1-0. The Saints just threw everything they could at the Panthers, and the Panthers just had no response for it. Bryce Young, you got to start feeling a little bit bad for the guy. I don't know. It's not his fault how bad of a situation he's been placed in. Really no offensive talent, poor leadership with the owner, and a head coach that doesn't seem to have a lot of say in what the team structure is like because of their owner. So Saints throttled the Panthers last weekend. Cowboys looked completely uninterested against the Browns. Deshaun Watson, I don't think he's going to be a starting quarterback half this year for the NFL. I think his contract, we talked about Daniel Jones. If it weren't for Deshaun Watson, his contract would look substantially worse. But Deshaun Watson might be the worst contract, not just in sports, but of all time. Really looks like he doesn't care. He's gotten his guaranteed money, and he's off to the races. But we're not talking about the Browns. We're talking about the Cowboys and the Saints. So the system play for this one, we're going to fade road teams versus the money line after beating the spread by 28 points or more in the previous game. This is a classic letdown spot for the Saints. And I know what you're thinking. Money line, what's that sitting at? It's not great. Right now you're paying minus 240 on the juice. But Dak Prescott is 43-15 at home. So he's been as close to dominant as you can get. The Saints coming off a big win, a big margin of victory. I think that you can go, and if you like to bet prop bets, I think you take that money line, minus 240, and apply it to a prop bet you like quite a bit. Because that stat we had, it's good for 83-10 since 2020. So massive spread as far as the getting the number in our favor. Laying all that juice, I understand. As far as the spread goes, the 6, if you want to take the Cowboys, take them now, because that 6 is going to increase Sunday. People love, America's team loves betting on the Cowboys. So come Sunday morning, that 6 is going to go higher. So if you like the Cowboys, grab it now. I also really like the over 46.5. If you're playing indoors, the Saints have some good offensive weapons. The Cowboys have some good offensive weapons. Top 3 receiver in the game in CeeDee Lamb. I expect them to get out to a good head start. And 46.5 for an indoor game with 2 offensive teams is really not that crazy. I know the Dallas's defense is going to be elite. Micah Parsons is going to be going crazy, but over 46.5 is the play we're going to be taking for this one. And then if you want to use that money line to parlay it with another prop or another game you like, I think that'd be a safe bet as well. Up next, we have the Seattle Seahawks visiting the New England Patriots. Current line, Seahawks laying 3. Over under, you can get 38 if you like the over, 39 if you like under. You're getting the biggest bargain of the weekend on this Seattle Seahawks team. New England, I still don't know how they did it. I had the Bengals in my only survivor pool, and just like, 40, 50% of America, I have no idea how the New England Patriots, who all offseason, all we heard about how terrible of a football team they were, new head coach, May's going to sit out because it seemed like it'd be better if we lose games, blah, blah, blah. And they go into Cincinnati and win the football game. So if the Bengals knew how to play football in the month of September, that never happens. And this spread opened up in a 5-point swing. So a week ago, it would have been Seattle laying 8. So you can get the Seattle Seahawks laying 3 points. I absolutely, absolutely love that play. And the system we're using for this one is bet against any team off an upset who won 25% or less of their games the previous season. That play, week 1 against the spread, that play is good for 52-19 against the spread since 1983. So again, a team that was really bad last season, won 25% or less of their games, coming off of a big upset win the previous week. Against the spread the following week, they are 19-52. So we're going to take the Seahawks laying that 3. I'm not even afraid of it being on that key number. If you want to bet it down to 2.5, if you see 2.5, smash it, because I think that number is going to maybe flash in a few spots. But this is the same logic with the Cowboys and the Commanders picks. You could see this game going up come Sunday morning. So grab the 3 now while you can. Over under, 38 points. It really depends. I could see the Patriots scoring 2 field goals, 6. This game could be 24-6. You're finishing at 30 points. So, man, I'm going to stay off the over under with that one and just lay the points with Seattle. Our final play for Sunday slate is the Rams visiting the Arizona Cardinals. This one I don't get one bit. I don't understand the number. It's currently a pick'em. Over under 47.5 or 48 if you like the under. Rams could have won last week in Detroit, like we were saying. Overtime touchdown ended the game. I absolutely love Matthew Stafford against what I consider a bad defense. Josh Allen carved the Cardinals last week. I think they got up early, and then Josh just kind of said, I guess I'll take over this game, and we're going to win this football game. It doesn't matter how. I'm going to air it out. I'm going to run it. We're just going to get it done. And they accomplished that. So I don't understand why this game's a pick'em. I know Puka Nakua's out for the Rams, but Cooper Kupp, you saw how well he played on Sunday night. He could have 16 catches this game. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. So you take your look at the game, the pre-existing notions that we have, which I think the Rams are a better football team. You take that logic and then you try and find a system play that reiterates your decision-making, and we found just that. So we want to bet against home favorites that were a poor team last season. The poor team qualifies here as being outscored by 4 or more points per game versus divisional opponents. So the Rams and the Cardinals, divisional opponents, coming off of a poor performance. I have no idea why this is a pick'em. So I really, really like betting against them on this one. As far as betting against the Cardinals go, Rams are currently getting 70% of the bet, good for 54% of the money. So this one, we are on the public side. But I just don't see a world where the Cardinals come ready to play. So our take on this one, we're going to take Rams money line. You can find that at plus 104 currently. If you want to get the half point, get the point. It really makes no difference. I'd rather just get a little bit better price on that at that plus 104. So for week 2, those are our top plays that we will be using. As always, follow along with us on social media because we will have stuff added to the card, especially a lot of first half, second half stuff, maybe even some live. So follow us on X for all that stuff to stay up to date. Here are 2 stay away games I have. So if you want to look at the rest of the board and you want to bet Philadelphia versus Atlanta or Chicago versus Houston, you can go ahead and do that. Here's 2 games I would not bet. Colts versus the Packers. So last Friday, Jordan Love goes down, and this spread flipped from, I think the Packers were laying 5.5, and now the Colts are laying 2.5. So a touchdown swing. Malik Willis, I don't think he's thrown for 100 yards in any game he's played in. And then you hear Matt LaFleur saying that Jordan Love may suit up this week. I don't know if they're trying to play a game and make the Colts prepare for Jordan Love. I don't know what they're doing. I think with all the inconsistencies there and the fact that we just don't know what's going on, I think you just stay away from that one. The second game I'm staying away from, Bengals visiting the Chiefs. I know Joe Burrow has been Patrick Mahomes' kryptonite. This game's in Kansas City. Bengals are getting 5.5 or 6 points, but still, what do? Do you bet on Joe Burrow beating the Chiefs historically, or do you bet on the Bengals being really, really bad in the month of September? So that one washes out. I'm staying away from this one. I'll save my Chiefs money for later in the season come playoffs. That's when we'll take a lot more wagers on them. I'd stay away from those two if I were you guys. Here are the props that we're going to rapid fire through. Once again, I'm not going to go into the details, but I'll give you just a little bit of the reason these are our top 10. So I use some program called Unabated. Unabated basically takes all the books that are legal in your area. So I use the ones here in Illinois, and you can put in your own projections, or you can use some stuff that's updated or uploaded from the Fantasy Pros and the Unabated website. As far as, just like when you open up your fantasy football app, it'll show Drake London, estimated receiving yards this week, 37, estimated catches 4. So it basically does that. And then it takes all the sports books and sees who has the numbers that are either lower or higher that coincide with the numbers they predict the players to have. So I went through and kind of looked at all those and tried to find some value wherever I could. So each of these plays have what they consider a 20% or higher estimated value. So when you get that number, if you're playing daily fantasy or underdog, prize picks, you name it, but just betting props outright, those are the kind of things you look at. Because if you're getting a 20% estimated value, if you have 10 player props a week, the likelihood of you going above break even is going to substantially go up if you can find value amongst the books. So in really no particular order of favorites or whatever, this is just our top 10 prop plays for this week. Justin Herbert over 199.5 passing yards against Carolina this weekend. You can find that over on MGM. Jacoby Brissett over 181.5 on FanDuel. Bo Nix over 166.5 on FanDuel as well. That's probably my favorite one on here. Kirk Cousins over 226.5 on FanDuel. Now, as far as receiving yards, Jaden Reed from Green Bay over 32.5 on FanDuel. Cade Otton, Tampa Bay's tight end, over 22.5, also FanDuel. Xavier Legette, Carolina, over 19.5 on FanDuel as well. Mike Gesicki, Cincinnati tight end, under 28.5 over on MGM. Here are two reception plays. Rico Dowdle, Dallas running back, under 1.5 receptions. Chuba Hubbard, Carolina running back, under 2.5 receptions over at Caesars. So those qualify for the 20% or more estimated value. Like I said, if you want to build some underdog or prize picks, daily fantasy, you name it, those would be some guys I'd incorporate in a lot of those lineups. So those are our plays for week 2 NFL football. We'll keep track of all this stuff. I'll put these up here again for the plays that we're making. And if you have any questions about how we came about these numbers, send me a message, find me on Twitter, put a comment down below, and we'll dive deeper and explain how we got there. Because at the end of the day, what I'd love to do is teach you guys my system, and then if you can apply it to yourself, and then you can spend an hour going over this on your own, making your own bets more educated, then great. That's the goal here. So I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend, and most importantly, good luck with your bets.